I now call to order the regular session meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs on Tuesday, August 27, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Alahouzes.
Here.
Vice Mayor Terapany.
Here.
Commissioner Sieber.
Here.
Commissioner Carr.
Here.
Commissioner Donovan.
Here.
Tonight's invocation will be given by Major Ted Morris from the Salvation Army. Please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Our God, we thank you this evening for our mayor, for our city manager, for the elected officials, our law enforcement, and other first responders of our community. We thank you that we live in a country where we can have representative government. We thank you for those who are here of our community to be a part of this process this evening. May the deliberations be pleasing in your sight as we discuss the matters pertaining to this city. Bless us each one as we serve you in this way, for it's in your holy and precious name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our commission meeting, and it's great to see all of you here tonight. We'll begin tonight with a special presentation. A is employee recognition. Ronnie Clunch, please come forward. On behalf of the City of Tarpon Springs, it's my honor to congratulate you, to thank you for your services and for the outstanding work that you do for our water plant. And thank you for your dedication and the quality of work that you do for us. Thank you. Of course, Mr. Smith, did you want to say a few words also? Okay. Thank you. Let's go.
You want everybody?
All of us, yeah.
Good evening. I'm Paul Smith, Public Services Director, and I'm very pleased and proud to speak on behalf of the department and Ronald Clunch. He's our lead water plant operator A, and this is a special recognition for us for many reasons, but this is quite a prestigious award he's received. It represents the entire southeastern portion of the United States, and what makes it particularly special is that Ronald started out with our city as a distribution technician one, an unlicensed position at that time. And he worked his way up over the years, starting in January of 2006, and went all the way through our apprentice program to just about the highest level operator you can achieve, a lead water plant operator A. And we're very proud of him. So to work his way up from the very entry level to where he is now, and then on top of that win a regional award in the United States, it just says a lot about Ronnie Clunch, says a lot about our leadership and the great place of opportunity that we have. So thank you all very much, and congratulations, Ronnie. I'd like to introduce behind me here Raymond Page, Utility Superintendent, Hillary Weber, Water Division Manager, and of course Ronnie Clunch, our lead water plant operator A. I think Hillary wanted to add a few words.
Hello, Hillary Weber, Water Division Manager. I'd like to congratulate Ronnie Clunch for this honorable award. And this award could not go to a more deserving and honorable person. He does a very good job at the RO facility, and we couldn't be more proud to have him as part of our team. Thank you.
I'm Ronald Clunch, lead operator, the RO facility. I just want to say thank y'all for allowing me to work here, and appreciate it.
Are there any commission comments? Commissioner Sieber?
Congratulations, Ronnie. I just wanted to say congratulations, Ronnie. We're all so proud of you. And you've done such a great job and accomplished so much. I had talked about initiating some type of award or recognition for employees like you who have accomplished so much, and also for time served with the city, because we have employees who've served 20, 25, 30 years. And I had talked to Mark about implementing this a few months ago, so I'm glad you're the first one. Again, congratulations for your hard and dedicated work to our city and at the RO plant. Thanks.
Thank you. Again, Ronnie, we are like to congratulate you and to thank you for the services that you provide into our city. We're very fortunate to have quality employees like yourself, not only in the water department, but every department that we have. Thank you. The next special presentation is for the Best of the Best Award recipients. On behalf of the city and the people of Tarpon Springs, we'd like to recognize and to congratulate our local businesses that have been distinguished by the Tampa Bay Times and the Beacon newspaper as the best of the best. So we're very proud for your accomplishments and your contributions to our great city. Thank you. If we, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to also thank you all for your commitments to the town, for making our town a better place. Through your sacrifices and your contributions, you create jobs, you employ people, you add to our tax base, and you make our community a better place to live, work, and play overall. So thank you for your sacrifices. You are the best of the best.
Clark?
I just want to echo the same thing as the mayor and vice mayor has said. Small businesses are the backbone of Tarpon Springs, and so thank you all for being part of that and contributing to Tarpon Springs and making Tarpon Springs a unique place to live, work, and play. So thank you all for everything you do.
Yes. Well, I echo them as well. Thank you all. And as a business owner myself, I know what it's like to own a business and be there 24/7, and you have nothing else in your life almost. So I appreciate all of your hard work and being the best of the best, and I congratulate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Donovan?
Yeah, thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for working so hard to make our community a better place and for your business's success. You all should be very proud.
Thank you. We are now ready for the presentations. We go forward.
Thank you all. We've got 20 businesses that were given this award, and I just want to say Karen Lemons, Economic Development Manager, and I'm just so happy to be able to work with all of these amazing entrepreneurs and business people here today, and so congratulations to all of you for achieving this award. So we're very pleased to give you a certificate today of appreciation on behalf of the mayor and the Board of Commissioners. So I'll read your names, and then if you want to come up and get the certificate. We've got these in alphabetical order. Aries Roofing Services. And Brookdale Senior Living. Carson Family Care Center and MediSpa. Consign and Design, the relatively new consignment on Alt 19. I don't think she could be here tonight. Costa's Restaurant, Stelios could not be here tonight. Dobie's Funeral Home.
He's not here tonight, but I'd like to speak on his behalf.
Hey, Mayor, Dr. Carson's here, and I'm here, so, you know, you're getting older, so if you should collapse, he's here, and then I'll take you away. Oh, I'm public comment number one.
What do we do without Dobies here, huh? And one of our youngest business owners, Ella's Boutique. And Halaz Restaurant. And from St. Luke's Cataract and Laser Institute, Dr. Bruce Kiskadon, he could not attend here today, but he received an award for one of the best ear doctors. Koulianos and Associates. Lucan's Wine and Spirits. They have several locations. I don't think they could be here tonight. Mr. Souvlaki. I think she wasn't able to be here. One Amazing Find. I know they were not able to be here tonight. Orange Cycle Creamery. Amazing ice cream store. Publix was also awarded. Rusty Bellies. I think they could be here. Keaton's here. Tarpon Discount Drugs. The Bayou Cafe. And the Garden and the Relic on alternate 19. And last one is Tim's Performance Center. They could not be here today. So could we give everybody another round of congratulations? Thank you.
Are there any public comments on these items? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. Julie Wade, 1095 Mainsail Drive.
Julie, do you have any comments for the
Oh, I
presentation?
thought you said public comments. I'm
No,
sorry.
for the presentations
No,
first.
that was fantastic.
Okay. We'll come back to the public comments. Let's see if anybody has any comments for this presentation. Sorry. Any comments for these two presentations that we just have? We have none, Julie. We are now going to the public comment. Thank you. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Julie Wade, 1095 Mainsail Drive, here in Tarpon. First, of course, I always want to thank you guys for the work that you do, Mr. Terpenny. But I did have a concern about something that happened at the last meeting, and I felt that I really needed to bring it up. I really have no problem funding a sports event, but the procedure that was followed last time was not correct. I was surprised Mr. Trask didn't call it out. Usually when a presentation is made, then it goes back for workshop and for city to finish up with that. But that was not done. No data was given for giving that $10,000 to them, only anecdotal data. Now, we've talked a number of times about putting in electric parking stations. You guys wanted data, 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 and that was free. This was $10,000, and there was not one bit of real data that proved the reason that the sports weren't continuing was just because of money. A lot of moms have other reasons. Love sports, always had kids participate, but the procedure was not correctly followed. I felt like you failed in your fiduciary data responsibilities on that, not following proper procedures for that. I think that Commissioner Sieber got a bad rap thinking she wasn't for the actual expenditure, but she was trying to pull back and have the procedures followed. She even said, we're going to vote on this. It just came up tonight. And that was a concern. And I would appreciate y'all looking into that a little bit. I'd also like to suggest something that I haven't heard talked about a lot. I saw in the paper that Lakeland has this wonderful incubator kitchen idea. They have one major kitchen. Startups can use it. We have plenty of empty spaces for doing something like this. It would be great for our students, chefs, to get to start on their food products or food service businesses. And we love to, just like you talked about, support small businesses. And I would love to see some investigation on some sort of incubator-type kitchen and perhaps partnering with Jacobson Academy. We've got the kids here that are wanting to be in this field, and I think it would be something worth investigating. Again, thank you, and please be careful that procedures get followed equally for everybody's propositions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments on the items that were not going to be discussed tonight? Here none, thank you. We are now going to the consent agenda. Number 1 is the minutes for June 25th, 2019, regular session. B is July 9th, 2019, regular session. C is July 16th, 2019, the budget work session. Number 2 is their attorney fees, Trask Darnell, invoice date August 9th, 2019. Number 3 is a special event, Salsa on the Sponge Docks, October 12th, 2019. And B is the Sponge Docks Arts and Crafts, October 26 and 27, 2019. Number 4 is the increase file, number 170136, CCM, Sod Materials and Services, Pinellas County, contract number 167-0120-BPF. Number 5 is the award file number 190137, and then CN, single source purchase of Dodge Original Equipment Manufacturer, OEM Parts and Services. Any of those items that you'd like to pull? Hear none. Any commission comments? No commission comments. Are there any public comments on this item? None. The chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. We are now going to the special consent agenda. Item number 6 is to select Long and Associates Architect Engineer Incorporated for the RFQ number 190095-S-JJ City Clerk's Office Renovation Architectural Services. City Manager.
Mr. Robertson will be presenting this item.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Bob Robertson. I'm the Project Administration Department Director. For this item, we're asking the board to approve a contract with a firm named Long & Associates to provide architectural and engineering services for the renovation of the clerk's office building right here behind City Hall. Long & Associates was selected through a two-step competitive process requiring both a written response to an RFQ, request for qualifications, followed by an interview with the top-ranked firms by an evaluation committee composed of staff, city staff. So there's a broad spectrum of renovation possibilities that we can do for this building, and recognizing that it could range from minor interior renovations and roof repairs to complete demolition and reconstruction. So because of that, I'm recommending we approach this in 2 phases. The first phase I'm asking you to approve tonight would provide a condition assessment and an alternatives analysis with preliminary construction cost estimates for each alternative. These would be presented to staff for our internal review and then brought to you for review and approval before we move on to phase 2, which would be the full design and development of plans and specifications of whichever alternative is preferred. So again, I'm just asking you tonight to approve phase 1 to begin the analysis phase of this project. With that, I'll stop for any questions.
Thank you. I really don't have any questions because I discussed that very thoroughly with you. And Mr. LaCourse, I want to thank you for bringing this thing forward. This is the old middle school cafeteria. It definitely needs some upgrade. You constantly have people working on it. Just the other day, we had somebody working on the roof. Seems like we always got somebody there. I think it's time that we upgrade it, and it needs to be employee and customer friendly, and also the ADA concerns that we have there. So I'm looking forward to get the recommendations from the experts to get it going. Commission comments? Vice Mayor?
I'll just say, Mayor, that I think sometimes, you save the best for last, and the clerk's office has definitely been in need of a renovation for a long time, and they are 100% essential service and essential employees to the city of Tarpon Springs. So I'm glad that we'll be able to, in the near future, provide them with a better workspace and environment, one without a leaky roof and adequate record keeping, climate control, et cetera. So
yeah, for the customers too.
The customers too, yeah.
Commissioner Sieber.
Yes, as you said, Commissioner Terapany, this has been a long time coming, and it's much needed. So I definitely feel like we need to do it sooner than later. I mean, I see buckets in there collecting leaks. So that's unfortunate. What would the time frame be once we approve this?
For this first phase, it should take maybe a few months, including internal review time, so we can bring you a product to review. From there, it could take several more months to go to a final design and put something out to bid for construction. So, I mean, conservatively, we probably wouldn't see construction till next summer, maybe sooner, but I don't want to overpromise.
So we're almost a year away from getting it completed then.
Let's say that for now. I would love to be able to beat that, but it's really early to be able to tell you because it depends on which option we go with. If we go with a complete demolition and reconstruction, that's obviously going to take longer than an interior renovation and roof repair and things like that. So we'll give you a better estimate when we get to phase 2.
Thanks, Bob.
Sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Donovan?
Yeah, my question, you kind of just answered it, was just how expansive were we willing to go? I know this is for the design plan, so we'll have different options to choose from, but I just want to know if completely demolishing it and rebuilding it was on the table.
Certainly, yeah, they're all on the table right now. We want to know if it's going to cost more. Also looking at things like if we did just a simple renovation, how much life are we going to get out of that? Is it going to make more sense to completely demolish and rebuild in the long run in terms of operation and maintenance costs and long-term costs? So I want to take all that into consideration before we come back to you with a recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item? Are there any public comments on this item? Hear none?
Thank you.
I will entertain the motion.
Motion to approve.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Donovan,
Yes.
Commissioner Carr,
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany,
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas.
Yes, thank you. We are now going to the item number 7, which is the increase to file number 170109 CCM, utilizing the Omnia Partners, formerly known as the U.S. Communities Purchasing Alliance. It's a contract number 15, JLP023 for air conditioners. Staff report.
Yes, I'm gonna have Chief Coaching do this report after we talked about the last commission meeting. I had him work with Mr. Function in Public Works and Kevin Powell in Building to look at this issue and bring you back more information. I think there was a lack of information that was given to you on this. So I asked Chief Coaching to head the committee up and bring back all the information we have on this for you, and look what's the best decision to make for the city.
Thank you, Mayor, Board, Commissioners. I appreciate all of you taking the time to meet with myself and some staff members on this issue. We definitely drilled down on this and got in depth with it and definitely exchanged some good ideas. As we move forward, as you know, this current fiscal year, we have no funding to do anything with AC work. That's replacement, repair, maintenance. So the first thing we're asking for is just a $75,000 increase to the, if you will, Tampa Bay Train national contract to allow us to utilize this contract if anything breaks down or has to be replaced till the end of this fiscal year. The second thing we're asking is to allow the city manager and staff to utilize the Tampa Bay Train contract the remainder of next fiscal year. As you know, it expires on September 30th of 2020. And if you approve all of this, there were some motions, at least one motion made on July 9th that required us to go out the 3 bids for the community center, the cultural center, and some units over here at City Hall. If you approve this, we would ask that you rescind that motion and allow us to move forward. You do know we have some big projects coming up with the community center, cultural center, and City Hall. These are complex projects, and they're most likely going to have to be done in the next fiscal year, and we believe Tampa Bay Train is the most economical and efficient way to do these projects with. So with that said, we'll turn it back to the Commission, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any commission comments, questions? Commissioner Carr.
Thanks, Mayor. With this item, I'm happy to support increasing the Tampa Bay Train's contract, or blanket PO to cover the maintenance for the remainder of this fiscal year. And I know there's some outstanding invoices as well for this vendor. The one thing I would like to look at is, as a board, and encourage the board to look at is the smaller units that are being used across the city. I don't know exactly the correct tonnage, but let's say something that's 3 tons or below. 5 tons? Yep. Okay. So 5 tons and below, to look at an alternative to bid out, to see if some local businesses would be interested to bid, where we could use both contracts to say if the local vendor bids the better price, let's go ahead and use the local vendor. And so what we could do is we could have 2 different contracts to go off of. Anything that's 5 tons and above would go towards Tampa Bay Train. Anything 5 tons and below, which is more of like the residential type size or a smaller commercial building, would go to the local vendor. It could be a local vendor here in Tarpon Springs, Palm Harbor, Holiday, I suppose, Tampa, or maybe Tampa Bay Train has the best price. I'm not really sure, through this co-op that we're partnering with to go along with. So I would recommend that the board still try to get a local business to bid on the the remainder of 2020 for 5 tons and below, and then use Tampa Bay Train for anything larger, like the community center and some of these larger systems that we have across the city.
I agree with Commissioner Carr that the large unit, anything above the 5 ton, it should be going to the specialized, to the company that it has the specialty and the expertise to work on it. After taking the tour and see the air conditioners that we have are very complex, and not everyone here locally has the ability to do that. The units 5 tons and below really doesn't take that much an expert. It's like a residential unit, and seems like just every small business has the ability to work with that. But I like to see the contract to finish, and then we have a competitive bid, so we can do on both on the large units as well as small units. I like to finish the way it is now, since we have the bidding already in process. What do we have, a year or two left?
Yeah, next fiscal, it's ends September 30th, 2020, so 1 year.
After that, we'll go ahead and do the bidding process. Huh?
Why wouldn't we want to bid the 5 ton and below now for the fiscal year 2020? Because it's what this contract is with Tampa Bay Train is actually we're tagging on to it, or lack of a better word, a piggyback, a co-op. So there's not necessarily a commitment that the city of Tarpon Springs has made for 2020. It just gives the city of Tarpon Springs an opportunity to take advantage of the pricing it's already put in place. So I don't really see it being a detriment. And if the bids come back too high, ultimately it's just another project for the procurement team to try to run through it. So
I believe that we have a contract, we have an agreement with them. They know that they have those units now. Let them finish. It's only a year left, and then the following year, when we have a new contract, we can just bid on. That's the way I would like it. It's cleaner, makes more sense. Vice Mayor?
I would just back it up a little bit further and tell you, thanks, Chief, for meeting with all of us and taking the in-depth approach that you did on this. I mean, for sure, I want to see the HVAC contract rebid. And I think that just based on what I'm hearing from my colleagues tonight, which I haven't heard before, but it's something that we talked about with the team that the city manager put together for this item, is we definitely want to see it rebid, and it appears we want to see it bid in 2 different ways. One is commercial, one is, more of a residential approach. However you put the benchmark on it, whether it's 5 tons below or less, that's a different story. So I'm all for having it rebid and put back out for procurement. I don't want to leave ourselves, in a position where we don't have any funding or, we're short a contractor. To Commissioner Carr's point, if you were to say right now, okay, we'll rebid the residential type units, I don't know if that gives us 30 days. Essentially gives us enough time to do that. Maybe in your experience, it is. Is it?
I'm not part of the city requirements, but my understanding is that the city would still be able to use the Tampa Bay Train contract because we're already part of that contract, but it's not an exclusive contract. We're able to use other vendors still. So that's the advantage of that. It being non-exclusive, we could still work with other vendors. So it could be 60, 90, or 120 days technically, but if we do a 60-day RFP for the local vendors, then we could say, would that be November? Right? And then let's say a local vendor wins, and at that point we have an opportunity to use Tampa Bay Train or the local vendor. If the AC fails and needs to be replaced, they would call the local vendor. He's like, I can't do it for 2 weeks. Then we could say, okay, we still have the contract with Train, so we can go use a Train contract now as the backup or contingency. So it still kind of builds in a redundancy as well for the situation. And the good thing is, remember, it's not a commitment that the city has made to Train. It's a non-exclusive agreement, and we're tagging on to what is a co-op type agreement. So it's like similar to what we do with the city of St. Pete or the League of Cities, where they have this agreement and they're like, that's a great agreement, let's go ahead and jump onto it. So there's no commitment from the city side that we have to use Train. But it's beneficial that Train does all the maintenance across the board still.
Thank you. I haven't changed my mind. I voted to approve this last time, and I still feel the same way. we have a complex system, and thank you, Chief, for showing it to us and explaining all this very thoroughly. I think, in my mind, we have a contract with Train, and we should continue it for the year that it's that we still have it. They're on call 24/7 for service. If we decide not to use them for a smaller unit, would we get the same type of service? Would we? I just wouldn't want to fool around with that. I don't think it's wise. So I feel that Train should continue doing all the work, and, at least through their contract. And then if we want to go rebid next year, then that would be the time to do it. But I approve what Chief Cochin gave us tonight.
Commissioner Dunn.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I wanted to take a second and thank Chief Cochin and the rest of the staff for meeting with us on this. They put together a nice presentation and answered all the questions that I had at the time. I definitely do want to go out to bid when the contract is up in 2020, and I do want to make sure we pay our debts that we currently owe, because they've just been doing work, without getting paid for a little bit now. But I guess my question would be back at staff. That's not something that we had considered at our original meeting. I know it's very easy for them to come in and say, hey, I don't want to work on an AC unit that I didn't put in, because I don't know the ins and outs of it or anything like that for some of the larger stuff. But for something like Commissioner Carr brought up with the 5-ton tonnage, is that something that's feasible?
Well, we met, again, in depth with Kevin Powell, who's an expert in this area, Tom Function, who has experts on staff and purchasing, and we can do a carve-out. And they set forth the criteria for that. And the recommendation is, if we go out to bid, which we would have to go out to bid if you go with this backup tonight, we have to go out to bid sometime around March. And if it is the will of the commission, we could do a carve out with this criteria and go out to bid. Now, Tampa Bay Train can bid on that too. Anybody, anyone can bid on it, but local people get a chance to bid too. But they have some really good criteria, and if they did bid out on it and they won the contract, it would be one vendor, and they would be responsible for everything, repair, maintenance, and replacement of that individual unit. Because the thing I think we want to avoid is starting to cross-reference Train with other companies, and then you start getting into this, well, who's responsible for this, or who's responsible for that? And I think there was some really good comments on that when we all met. So, but we have a plan, and we set out, if we want to, we have to go out to bid mid-year anyway, the criteria for a carve-out, and how it could work. And we had a lot of experts weigh in on this, so it's not just me. People in the audience, to include Kevin Powell, who owned his own, AC company and worked on the commercial side for many years. So I think we really have some good feedback and expertise that is providing you with this information. So we're confident that we could do a carve-out. If you want, we're going to have to go out to bid anyway around March, and we could do a carve-out for the criteria. One bid for everything that's complex, and then a carve-out bid.
And also, I'd like to remind to everyone that we have no funding available for any air conditioning repairs.
That's correct.
But Train is continuing servicing our air conditioners, and at this time, we owe them $25,000.
Correct.
Yes, I agree with you, Chief. And because we didn't approve this last time, we've had some issues. And Train has continued to service those issues with the air conditioners that went down. So I think it's only fair to continue the contract with them, and then when we go out to bid for next year, then that's the time to make our decision for that.
Any other comments before we go to public comment? Are there any public comments on this item? Hear none, I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Carr?
No.
Commissioner Siebert?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes.
Can I ask for some clarity, Mayor, from the city attorney? I know there's some discussion about the July 9th meeting. Was that addressed in that motion, or did that answer what would need to be addressed in that as well?
Tom,
I took it as moving staff recommendation, and yes, it was covered then.
I just want to make sure there's
that was
clarity
point
with
three, correct, that we had discussed. Thank you.
Okay, we're now going to the item number 8, which is the RFQ number 190088 SJJ General Planning Consultant Services Select Colvin Giornato and Associate Staff Report.
Before Heather makes a presentation, this was on the last agenda. I heard some concerns from several on the board about this issue, so we went back to the drawing board. We took out an item that is going to be rebid with the emphasis on the historical nature of the project and doing that. There was a concern about the amount every year for miscellaneous services, so we dropped that to the $25,000 that we asked for every year for contingencies to come up instead of the $100,000 that was there. So I believe we've made the changes in this, that we heard the concerns from the commissioner before the meeting, and so why the day of the meeting I pulled it to go back to the drawing board and bring you a product addressing those concerns. So Heather, you can just go over this and what the purpose of this is and these items that we have budgeted and agreed to budget to do and the assistance that we need. Remember, we had a long time from the time where everybody in the planning unit resigned and we had to put it together, and it took years and years to put it together. So this will address some of the things we're years behind on and get us up to date and assist with the day-to-day operations of planning and the volume of work we got. Even now with the full crew, there's no way we can handle these things that should have been done over the last 5 years that we're making up for. There's no way we can do it. It won't get done without this assistance. So with that, Heather, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Heather Earler, Planning and Zoning Director. Okay, so this represents a step forward, probably a quantum leap step forward for Planning Department, at least under my tenure. We have projects on here that we actually are going to be proactive planning for the first time in the 4 years that I've been here. We're looking to look at our land development code for the first time and really go through it at a holistic view and really work through that. And we need some additional expertise to do that. There are sections that Pat and I and our new planning planner John just do not have expertise in. So we need to rely on a consultant to provide that and fill in the places that we just don't have either the time or the expertise. Specifically, that project is probably one of the bigger projects and it's going to be an ongoing project for some time that we'll be working on. The other one is the grant-funded program that we have for that section by West Tarpon that we have that the Sun Bay came down, and we're going to look at that, the highest and best use for that property. And again, we were able to get that grant to move forward and look at that project. That's something that, again, we're going to need to tap into the resources of a consultant just to move that project along quickly, because that has a very short time frame of a year, and we need to move that along. So they're very specific projects that we're really looking at. Again, we've removed the issues with the historic grant. We're going to bid that separately, and you'll see that in the future. We're going to be also working on your comprehensive plan, because every time we go into the land development code, we need to also look back at the comp plan, and there are sections of your comp plan that really need to be addressed. Your county is currently going through their local mitigation strategy update at this point, and I anticipate that when that happens, they're going to be looking at additional updates that they're going to be sending along to the city and saying, we'd like you to, investigate these areas in your comp plan and address them. So we're kind of trying to move forward in a more progressive manner. Your transportation element really needs to be updated as well, and we really need to move forward with those changes. I mean, they've kind of been held back for some time with not having planning staff in the right positions to just push through with those elements, and we've kind of really been just doing Band-Aid amendments. We need to stop doing that. We really need to focus in on doing this. There's not a problem with the contingency services being $25,000 and us coming back. If we have a big project or we have something that comes up, I have no problem coming back to the board and letting you know what's going on in the planning department. With that, I can answer any questions you have, and we can get into specifics if you've got questions about specific projects.
Well, this is an item that it was pulled from the last meeting, and now you brought it back with these modifications based on suggestions that were made from the board. And $50,000 was being removed from the original request. You answered one of my questions that I had here, that since we hired a new planner, if we have the resources to work with a vendor, with a consultant, that we can actually help out with that, do we?
Well, we have, we have planning staff to work on the everyday planning, the planning projects that are coming through, but some of these higher level planning projects dealing with the land development code and comprehensive plan, John doesn't have the experience level for that. It's going to take some time for him to get up to speed with that. He's coming from out of state. So that's not something that I'm going to be able to use our existing planning resources to just devote to that, not and keep up with the level of work that we have. So having those consultants on board where we can actually have them do some of the research so that we can work through those issues and then bring a better product to you, that's a much better option for us.
Mm-hmm. How often do we updating this element?
The zoning hasn't been updated holistically for probably 20 years, maybe longer. We've done Band-Aid amendments here and there. The comp plan, we have gone into amendments and adjusted amendments as needed through the evaluation year report that we did the second year I got here. So we have done some amendments there. But again, there are sections of the comp plan that really need to be moving forward to be updated on a more regular basis.
Any commission comments? Commissioner Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Heather. Obviously, rewriting the antiquated, as you put it, land development code is way overdue. 20 years. I mean, there's been a lot of changes, and I think that we do need to be proactive and as you said, the needed expertise that your department may not have. I also like that you said they would be looking at the highest and best use for that West Tarpon property that we purchased. It's been sitting there for 3 years with no plan. So I definitely feel that we need to support you in this and get more expertise.
Well, thank you.
Commissioner Carr?
Thanks, Mayor. Heather, can you just clarify a couple things for me? Is the $25,000 where it says grant funded projects, is that $25,000 in addition to the grant of $25,000, or is that just a $25,000 grant?
That is the $25,000 grant. That's what that project's going to come in for.
Okay, great.
There is nothing else budgeted for it.
And then is it possible to do anything else on the West End, or is that just the only thing that was applied for? Was that very tip of the West End?
Well, what was applied for was that very tip of the West End in a bigger project, but we only got funding for the $25,000, so we've pulled back from the project with agreement with Fort Pinellas that we do just the highest and best use because that's what we can do for the money that they gave us.
Okay.
We would then go back out and ask for again next year in their cycle if they don't change the grant, the other half of the project.
Got it.
We're determined to get it after the third time. I mean, they've got to fund it.
Yeah, we'll make sure to keep the pressure on WIT. My other question is, so we've got $75,000 for general fund projects and a couple other items here funded or planned to be funded. Are these going to come back to the board for public comment, or how does that work? Or is just the consultant's going to work on it and then it's just going to be presented? Can you give me a little bit of breakdown of how that's going to look like?
So we're probably going to do a workshop with you similar to what we've been doing with the signs when we kick off the project for the land development code rewrite to kind of get direction on how you want to run that process. So the consultant and I kind of have worked in the past, because again, I've been working on this for a couple of years. When they were previously our consultant, we worked in the past kind of how we could scope out a couple of different options of how the public participation process could work and how this board could be, apprised of what's occurring on that project. So we probably will do a workshop in the beginning of that project to really get started on how you want to see that come back, what sections you're specifically interested in. I mean, I know the problem sections, I know the sections where we struggle, but there are other sections of the code that you may want to integrate as well as part of that. And prioritizing what needs to get done first is probably the best way for us to start that process.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Heather, for presenting this to us. I had a few questions. One, is that ordinary to not update our own comprehensive plan or land development code?
Well, we update it, but we need assistance with some of the tables and things that we do on the transportation side, like the element that you see there for the comp plan, these particular components tend to be a little bit more technical in nature because you're dealing with transportation. And we want to really integrate this go-around, the multimodal system that kind of was just put in as a separate component, really integrate it into that so that we can then back it into the rewrite for the land development code and actually utilize it on the concurrency side for what we do every day here with you guys when we do those site plans and those that move as they move through the process. We talk about transportation issues. We really want to reintegrate all of that. And we really need to start looking at the bike ped plan that we have had in the past and integrate that into our transportation element as well. So that's the reason why we're asking for the consultant there. Generally, we do a lot of the comp planning. There are some more specific elements that we really ask for help on. Usually it's like the coastal element because you're dealing with hydrology and hydraulics, and dealing with that, you really want to have a hydrologist as part of that discussion with you and or a coastal engineer. So that's an element that we often will come to the board for, but transportation is the same thing. There are transportation professionals out there that actually do modeling and that type of thing. That is not a planner's forte. I can read the models, but actually programming the models, that's something that we want a transportation or a traffic engineer to help us with.
Okay. And so are you going to be working with them on the land
Yeah,
development code
essentially
stuff? Helping?
Essentially what ends up happening is they do a lot of the research and that and bring us their recommendations, and then we work through those recommendations with you as a board and determine what are the best policy positions for us to put into our comp plan to really address transportation, on a short-term time frame of 5 years, and then a bigger time frame of a 20-year time frame. So that's what your comp plan's time frames are.
And do they have some sort of quota or work expectation? Just because $75,000 is a lot of money to work with our staff on.
So $75,000 for a code rewrite is been severely negotiated down. There's a lot of other pieces that if you look at what those generally cost, they're about 3 times that number. So we are actually have worked with our consultant, and they are very confident with working with the staff. That's why this particular consultant, we were very happy that they won the bid because they are very confident in your staff being able to work with and work through your public hearing process. So as a result, they know that they're not going to have to participate on that side, that they're really going to be doing the nuts and bolts of writing and really letting us kind of work with you on what actually happens here on the policy side.
Okay. And then Activate Tarpon Springs, the properties on West Tarpon Avenue, that's just concerning the old Sun Bay.
The old Sun Bay
property.
and the adjacent property, yeah.
Okay.
And it's a smaller project than what we had originally planned for. So you'll see another one probably come when they open their next cycle for the other half of that project.
Okay. And do you know how many, different types of the highest and best uses that they're going to try to identify?
I have no idea, but again, that's one of those things that if that's something the board is interested in kind of talking about, we can sit down and do workshop. That's another item that can easily be workshopped with you.
Okay, yeah, because I'm all for using grants. I just feel like this is kind of putting the cart before the horse, because I'd like to at least get some commission input or some public input on what might be good for a property there, maybe contact the neighbors too, and try to get some sort of public input before we just say to this Clearwater consulting firm, tell us what to do.
Well, there's a public participation portion of that where we would actually go out and we would elicit some of that comment as part of the grant before we actually sit down and actually do the nuts and bolts. A lot of the data has already been collected as far as the plans exist or parts of the plans exist. We just need to kind of put it all together and see what it means.
So there will be a public meeting on it?
Yeah, there'll be more than one.
Okay. And then my next question was just on the $25,000, just kind of the continual as needed basis one. Is that us just kind of writing you guys a check for $25,000 each year and you can use it, as needed, or are you going to have to come back to the board and ask permission every single time you want to touch the $25,000?
So we wouldn't ask. Essentially, it's basically our contingency fund. So if there's a project that we need to move forward, or we need to have them fill in for us, or if they're coming to board on a regular basis because I'm down a staff member, that type of thing, that's what we've used that fund for in the past, and that's what I would expect that fund to be used for in the future.
Okay, so could we put an asterisk on that for when we do want to use the $25,000? We have to ask for it at a board meeting, at a BOC meeting?
So that means if I need to get them to cover a meeting because I need to be sick or out, we would not have staff coverage for that meeting. I mean, that's ultimately what we end up utilizing that for. So I wouldn't be able to come back to this board that meets every 2 weeks just on a contingency basis when we have to have meeting coverage or when we have to have thing. If it's a project-based, yes, we'd be able to come back for it, but more than likely a project-based is probably not going to come out of that fund. It's going to come out of something else.
Okay.
It's really just to cover the issues that we have when we just are either down a person or when there's an issue in the department where we actually need a professional planner to be here to staff one of your boards. You remember my department actually staffs 5 boards. We're staffed to this board, to the HPB board, to the technical review board, which doesn't run without us, and the Heritage Preservation Board, as well as the BOA and the Planning and Zoning Board. So when I don't have staff, those boards can't meet, and that's a problem for applicants.
But
So,
this isn't 25,000 just for filling in boards when somebody's absent.
It's
is it?
partially, we use it for that. We also use it for if we have a request from a commissioner that's research-based and we need to get it addressed quickly and we just don't have the staff time to deal with it because we're working on everyday planning projects. We'll actually have them go do some of the research and actually send us the research so that we can pass it along to you so that you actually have that information on a quicker basis, then we can actually turn it around to you. So that's really what we've used that fund for in the past, is kind of on an ad hoc basis for research, have them cover meetings for us if we need to have contingencies where we need to have them cover or staff, if they're working on a project, coordinate with some of our other agency partners if they need to be down at Fort Pinellas or they need to be over at the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, they'll do that for us on an ad hoc basis if we need that too. They've done a variety of those different things as they've worked on projects for us.
Okay. And I guess this, maybe you could answer, or maybe Mr. City Attorney could answer. Would there be a way with the 25,000 we could say you can use this as needed to fill in for whatever meetings, but if any additional projects came up that we were dipping into the 25,000 for, then we'd have to bring it back to a BOC meeting?
So the answer to the question is you can direct your city manager to do that, and then he can follow through with that. The answer is yes.
Okay. And Mr. City Manager, is that something that's been done before, or is that something you'd be comfortable with or uncomfortable with?
Well, again, that's why we reduced the thought of when we had the higher price was that, we could do those things as needed. With the 25,000 a day to day, if a project comes up with something we have to do, we'd have to be back with you because it's probably going to go back to you to add a little money to it. So if it's a major project without helping or something comes up that we need a major project on, we'll probably be coming back to you to add a little bit of the money to it. That's why we took it from the 100 to the 25. So if those instances came up, then we would come back to you and you would feel more comfortable with the allowance to do things. But if there's a bigger thing happening, then we have to come back to this board to get approval to move forward with that.
But that would be a bigger thing happening, as in more than 25,000 that you would have to come back here, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe I was just thinking, from the work session last night, we were pinching, $1,000 here, $2,000 here. I mean, this is $25,000 that, I just don't know if I feel comfortable with as just being essentially like a piggy bank for whenever we need to get extra work here, extra work there. At least not with coming to the board for approval first. Again, I'm fine with it for filling in for meetings and stuff like that because I get that you won't have time to come here. But for something where you could bring it back to the board, I think we should.
It's just very hard and practical when you have a contingency fund like this. For instance, I think the last I looked when we were talking budget, if that came with the budget, I think this year we've used somewhere roughly around 14,000.
Just under 13,000.
So, to come back on it's just not practical. But again, that's why we reduced the contingency from 100 to 25, so we could do those day-to-day things. And again, I hope when we get to the end, we're going to have some of that back to you and stuff. But to come back and forward, that's just not practical and good business in my mind.
And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to press, but I'm just saying the impractical part of it is just that if it's a day-to-day thing, you don't want to have to wait for another meeting to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask something for clarity along what Commissioner Donovan was talking about? Commissioner Donovan, I believe one of the things that we've talked about in the past too is to make sure that permitting and things along those lines flow through at a steady pace. And at times, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, if you have to lean on an expert that you're not necessarily an expert in to get back to a developer, to get back to someone that's trying to place a permit that's waiting for an answer, they would have to wait for another maybe month or so to get into the meeting for approval too. So I believe that could be something that also holds up development and some other aspects. And I do believe it's a good compromise from what was proposed initially before to where it's at today overall. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's like a third of an FTE. And we've had some vacancies, I'm sure, across the areas where it would fill that pretty quick for that extra staff time, right?
I just wanted to ask, if we don't use that 25,000, we still have whatever.
It rolls right back to the city manager at the end of the year. That's what it's done every year since I've been here. You've had a lot more money funded in those contracts. They've all rolled back.
And can come back to you for some of those things that we've left off the list last night.
And if you remember, we get a monthly financial report. That'll be in.
Is there a way though for staff to identify some of those permits coming in as they come in and say, hey, this is a broader range of permitting that we need. Maybe we're going to need an expert on this, and so that we can kind of have the foresight, because I mean we meet every 2 weeks. It's pretty consistent.
Okay, so it depends on whether we're yes, it can be done, but we are also under new rules that we have to move projects through within 120 days. So that means I got to get their approvals done through this board, but within 120 days from the day that they start their process. And so for us to do that, otherwise I got to start sending letters back and sending projects back, and I try not to do that. I try to move our things on the planning side through as quickly as possible so that they can get into permitting, so they can actually hit construction, especially when we're dealing with, getting into season and that type of thing. We want to get them moving so that they aren't like clouding up our roads with trucks and that type of thing. So we try to, identify those projects on the front end that we know that we're going to need other experts. And again, it's rare, but we do get projects that we don't realize until we get into the project that there is other issues associated with it that we then need other professionals to help for. So yes, we can identify those, but he's not wrong. It does slow down the projects. And that was when I got here, that was the biggest problem that we had, is we had this glut of projects that needed to move through. And some of that happened as a result of the consulting helping us through that process. Working TRC with me, getting permits through, doing tag teaming boards and that type of thing, so that we could get big agendas through. So that it's something that we can do. It's probably we can do a better job of it. But it's one of those things that it's not always as cut and dry as we know when we come in. Some of them I do know coming in, they're going to be the problems. But other ones I don't know that till we actually get into the nuts and bolts of the development.
Okay. And is there like an estimate of like monthly, I guess, building permits where we do need to rely on outside help? Like, do you have a figure, or maybe like an annual, this is how many permits per year that we rely on a consultant?
Sure. Well, it's becoming less and less, mostly because Pat and I have both been able to pick up on the permitting side. But when we pick up on the permitting side, we have to put down on the, writing policy side and that type of thing. So it's really just a balance between, if we need policy to move forward, that's when the projects fall behind. So we don't want that to happen. So again, as we're grooming new staff coming in, to pick up that load and that type of thing, that consultant can kind of step in and help that process. And that's really where they've been used in the past, was to help the staff move those projects forward. So the answer is yes, but it's not, we don't have a good handle on projects coming in. It kind of is a feast or famine. Right now we have probably about 60 projects that are kind of working through various phases. Some of them move through faster, others don't. And sometimes they're dealing with the jurisdictional permit issue, so that's why it takes so long.
Okay. Thank you. And again, I'm not trying to be a thorn in the side on it. I just,
want to understand.
$25,000.
I get it.
So that's all my questions I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item?
Julie Wade, 1095 Mainsail Drive. I didn't expect to comment on this, but it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. You're willing to give $10,000 with no data and no reasoning, and she's asking for just a little increase in what she's used in past years, and you're making a lot of hoops for her to jump through. It's just, the logic isn't following for me. So just keep that in mind. You gave $10,000 away for somebody that wasn't even a city employee, and she's asking for $25,000 that if they don't spend it all, it's coming back. And we have no assurances from that other group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Cindy Terrapini, 22 North Spring Boulevard. I think the improvements you made from the first agenda item a couple of weeks ago are great. I'm especially thank you for making the revision to rebid the historic design guidelines, as that really needs a specialist. It needs a specialist, not a generalist planner. So I appreciate that as well. I think you'll be much happier with the consultants that you get and the expertise that they'll bring to that project. I have comments on two general areas. Like I said, I think the improvements you've made are great. Two other additions that I think you could really make this even better. On the Activate Tarpon Springs grant, first of all, I want to apologize for not speaking about it before. I didn't see it in December 2018. I guess I missed it with the holiday rush. And in the May, when you accepted the grant, I was out of town on vacation, so I apologize for that. But this grant deals with two properties on Tarpon Avenue, the Sun Bay and the Hoffman site. As you will recall, hundreds of citizens, I think over 600 people, signed a petition urging you to purchase the Sun Bay, which you ultimately did, and everyone appreciates that. But the way this grant is written, and I will refer you to the grant that I received from the clerk, there is an open house after the consultant has developed the three scenarios. Well, that's not real public input, and I don't think you really mean to delay the public input to that point, because during the process of looking at purchasing the property, there were a lot of good ideas that came out about how to use that property. Park Connection was one, moving the Safford House was one, just to give you a couple of ideas. So if you don't have a public input prior to the consultant doing the work, you're not going to have a meaningful public input, and I don't think that's really what you intend. So I'd urge you to make that change. My second change relates to some of the comments you were just talking about the specifics of each individual project that you have before you. And with that, I'm talking about the zoning code rewrite and the comp plan improvements, both of which I think are very important projects, and I'm glad you're moving forward with them. But the standard process used by well-run cities who want to be financially transparent to their citizens is that they select a consultant to do the work, which you're reviewing tonight. And once that consultant is selected, the staff and the consultant then develop what's called a task order, and it's a very specific written document that explains exactly what the steps are for the project, the public participation program, which is going to be different for each program, the deliverables, which are the products or the reports or the graphics, whatever it is that the consultant's going to deliver to you, the time frame, and the payment for each of those phases. And that would, I think, resolve some of the concerns that you had, partly of the questions about the ongoing planning process. But when you use this task order process, that task order would then come back to you, you would review and approve that, and then you would know that the project is proceeding the way that you envision and the city envisioned it to happen. This is especially important for two of these projects, being the new zoning code or the code update and the comp plan, because those are what our goals for the future. Those are the most important things that we do in planning for our future. So I'd urge you to ask that each project come back to you with this task order with all the details. You review it, you revise it as needed, and then it's very clear for everybody, not just the city council, but also the consultant and the citizens about what's going to happen. And again, like I said, about the first item, I would just encourage you on the Activate Tarpon Springs to revise that public participation and move it earlier in the process. You'd be surprised when you get public input. The public has a lot of good ideas. There's been a lot of good discussions about what ought to be done with that property, and I think you'd be time well spent to be able to have that public process early. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment on these items. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Anita Protas, 901 Bayshore Drive. I'm a little bit confused here if the city manager or the mayor or commissioner can explain to me. When we went to buy Sun Bay, which I'm very happy we did, it's cleaned up the street, it's cleaned up the area. I believe that, and I can be wrong, the motion was made to negotiate with Mr. Hoffman for the price of the property. That didn't happen. And if it was in the motion, it never came back to reverse the motion. We talked about it here, and it's been so long, I can't remember exactly what was said. But there have been people from the chamber in the audience who wants to put something there with businesses. That's diluting our historic area. We have private homes there, and I'd like to know how strong in this plan the historic preservation unit is going to be. because we campaign for tourists to come into our historic city. We are known all over the world, and we've gotten awards for being a very historic city. And I hear tonight that it's going to be a component of this plan for the historic, and I want to know how strong it's going to be. I want to know if the city has a contract on Hoffman's property, because we're paying rent for the building and we're taking care of the green grass there and the property. Do we have a contract on that property for renting? If we do, how long is that contract? Anybody got an answer? Because we're spending taxpayers' money to take care of it.
We can answer that later to you if you want.
Well, you should tell it to the public, Mayor. The public wants to know. It's no secret.
There's no secrets, but this is not questions and answers. You know that, you're the former mayor.
That's right, but we did answer questions when the public comes to the podium and they want an answer.
Well, we get the answer to you.
I think that's wrong. I think you're holding from the public the information they need to have. Because I'm going to tell you, we have homes all over town that are renting out without permits. They're not being monitored. We don't know what's happening there, and we're losing that way. We even had one on Hope Street, and the gentleman didn't even live in Tarpon, was on a city board. I mean, this is ridiculous. These answers, when the public come up here, should be given, these questions should be given answers, and you're wrong in that.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Good evening, mayors, commissioners. Costa Vaticiotis, 538 West Cedar Street, Tarpon Springs. I had prepared some comments, but Ms. Erweiler's pretty much confused me at this point. I want to thank some of the commissioners' questions. They've clarified some of the ones that I had in mind as well. I'd like to confirm that what we're really saying in this memorandum from Mr. Jackus is that the city money is going to be $135,000 and not $160,000. I think the $25,000 is being paid for by Pinellas County. I just want to make sure that I understand what the actual amount of city funds are going to be. The other part of this is the Activate Tarpon Springs grant. There was a specific application, specific elements for that grant that were applied for, in a specific process. And as I understand, and maybe I'm misunderstanding Ms. Erweiler, that's kind of changed because instead of the $50,000, the city's receiving $25,000. And but it also sounds like we're still going to be doing the same thing. So I'm really, really confused because it's an extremely important part of the town. And I just, at this point, don't know, based on Ms. Erweiler's comments, exactly what is being planned. If there's still going to be these highest and best use scenarios that are being planned for, I want to remind everyone that MAI appraisals were conducted for both properties, where the highest and best use was determined, as well as the development densities. So I'm not sure why we're going to be doing that again. And then in addition, I suspect one of the three concepts that are going to be proposed is one that Mr. Hoffman has created and has discussed in the past. So that leaves two. And then as Ms. Terrapini and as the grant documents portray, the public comments don't come in until after all three concepts have been completed, which I find troubling. Because of the amount of effort and attention that this part of town has been paid to in the past. So as a minimum, it's just a request that at some point in the very near future, the planning department come back and explain exactly in detail what this Activate Tarpon Springs is going to be done, is going to happen based on this $25,000 budget instead of the $50,000 budget. I guess that's where I'm confused with right now. And again, I'm only saying this because it's an extremely important, sensitive part of town. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item? We have no more comments. Back to the commission. Any other comments here? Commissioner Siebel.
Thank you. Heather, as far as Mrs. Terrapini's question and the task order, are we going to be getting some kind of,
So the reason why you don't see the task orders are this project was scoped out 3 years ago when I started here, and Mark told me you can't have money. So I already had worked on where we were going to go. So those are there. They just need to be updated and then brought forward. So it's not like that hasn't been done. It just hasn't been part of this process because they need to be updated. We were working with we didn't know what consultant we'd be working with, essentially, when it happened to be that it come back with Cal and Giordano, but I don't know when these go, that's going to be that. And that was created with their assistance when we initially said, what does that project look like? What does that rewrite of the code look like?
back to do the consulting, they'll probably be updating that task
Oh,
order?
definitely. We'll be definitely doing that as
We'll
part
be
of this
getting
process.
that.
Well, if we want to do initially have you guys come back and approve that would not, I have no problem with that.
Just wanted to know about it. And also, could you explain our annual $10,000 contract, what Mrs. Protus was saying with Mr. Hoffman for the,
Okay, so we have a lease agreement with, for the Salon Bayou, what used to be the Salon Bayou that Karen uses as her satellite office, and we use that facility as well to host meetings and the like, to kind of get people interested in that area and talk about, potential for that area. And again, that because we have control over that property, that's why we went after that additional funding to try to fund some kind of study and move forward with something happening on that property. When we were only partially funded, we worked with Ford Pinellas to reduce the terms of the grant. They are what's in our local agreement that was presented here, that you approved, and that's what the project's going to be. So that I'd be glad to sit and talk with anybody with those documents, pull them all out, let anybody see them, answer any questions anybody has with those, but that's essentially what that project's going to be.
thank you.
Heather, can you please explain the $25 grant to activate Tarpon Spring?
That is the grant. The $25,000 is a grant-funded project that we obtained from Ford Pinellas to do a highest and best analysis on what is projected for the projects, for what could happen down at that West Tarpon area where the Sun Bay is and the adjacent Hoffman properties.
Was any requirements to get the $25 grant?
Yeah, we had to go through an extensive process with Ford Pinellas, and one of the issues that they brought to our attention the last time was they didn't like our public participation process, so we made sure that we included a public participation process this time, and they approved that process. So again, it's something that we can have additional, there's nothing stopping us from having additional public participation in that process. That is the bare minimum that's required for that project. Certainly anything that was brought up at the hearings during Sun Bay would be something that could be provided to the consultant as backup for what people had proposed as options for that property. And that testimony would be relevant.
I have no more questions. Any other questions? Any comment? I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I would like to just make a clarification, if I can, or add in addition to the motion, that we have public comments above or before the. I'm really butchering this one. Public comments before the three
An
items
initial
are brought
scoping
forward.
meeting for the project. If we're talking about Activate Tarpon Spring, an initial scoping meeting before the project is probably the most relevant.
Okay. And I also find it's good to have public comment for these other items as well. So as long as we make sure that there's public comment available for those as well.
Yes, we heard what this board has to say. So we'd be glad to do it. I know, with this one issue and being involved in the Sun Bay issue it is, but we've heard what you have to say.
Yeah.
We will do what you have said tonight and more if we have to, especially to create any less controversy in this item. We'd be glad to go forward and hear it. So.
Okay. So we have a motion, and are you requesting any additions on your motion on the second or what?
Just the public comment portion.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Donovan?
No.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Siebert,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany.
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas.
Yes, thank you. The next item on the agenda, number 9, is to select WSP USA Incorporated for RFQ number 1901, 23-SJJ, Hydrogeological Consulting Services, staff report.
Robinson.
Good evening, Bob Robertson, Project Administration Department Director. As the backup states, this is a continuing services contract with a firm called WSP USA Incorporated for a 5-year term set up with an annual spending limit. This is for work to be done on an as-needed basis for professional services related to hydrogeological analysis and reporting. Most of this work is related to the drinking water wells, the injection well and compliance monitoring wells for our water supply system. The landfill monitoring and well inspections and compliance reporting is also part of this contract. So there's a lot of compliance elements to this contract. Funding for these services is provided primarily through water supply system accounts and was included as part of the BOC-approved utility rate plan, so these numbers have already been programmed into the utility rates. And that's the general summary of this item, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is this service that we already doing this testing and monitor with another company, or we're just going to start now?
Yes, sir. We've had a 5-year contract that expired, and so we need another 5-year contract to continue this work. I consider this to be essential services related to compliance for the water system. I listed all the wells. When I went back and looked at some, we have close to 50 wells altogether when you consider all the monitoring wells, injection wells, landfill wells, gas wells. So we need a lot of help in generating reports and doing statistical analysis that's required to keep us compliant with our permits.
Is he going to monitor the output wells as well?
Yes, all those wells are part of this.
Thank you. Any commission comments?
Go on. Just for clarity, this is like a blanket PO, right? It doesn't mean it's a requirement to spend $300,000 a year. It's just you could spend up to $300,000 a year based on what services are needed, right?
Yes, sir. That is, you're just establishing an upper limit.
Thanks for clarifying.
Any other commission comments? Are there any public comments on this item? Here none. I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Donovan,
Yes.
Commissioner Carr,
Yes.
Commissioner Siebert,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany.
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we're now going to the item number 10, which is resolution 2019-28 to approve classification and salary plan for fiscal year 2020. This is the same one that we discussed during our budget workshop. Staff report, Mr. Lickford.
City attorney needs to read the resolution.
Can I read the title?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 2019-28, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, authorizing changes in the organization of the Building Development and Public Works Departments, including the transfer of a position, reclassification and retitling of positions, addition of a position, and providing for an effective date hereof. That was reading of Resolution 2019-28 by title only.
Now, staff report.
So again, we went over this at budget time. As we said, it's been a lot less than the last years because the only department we had to look at the reorganization and stuff that we didn't last year was building. So it's pretty much the same format as you've seen. We discussed it at budget time, but as you know, we're required to bring this back as a resolution and be approved. You can't just approve it in the budget. You also have to approve this resolution to go forward with the salary and classification plan along with the changes that were presented to you at budget.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to comment that the highest percentage goes to the people that make the low wages, so to bring them up, and I'm very happy with that. Commissioner Sieber?
No comment.
Commissioner Carr? No comment? Vice Mayor, you got any comments? Are there any public comments on this item? You're not, I need a motion.
Motion to approve resolution number 2019-28.
And second? Somebody? Do we have a second?
Second.
A roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. The next item on the agenda is 11 Resolution 2019-23. This is the application 1964 for Nicolas Petrantoni. This is a conditional use tourist home. This is a quasi-judicial. The city attorney will read the title and he will explain the quasi-judicial process. We also have item number 13 and 14B are also quasi-judicial. Have them all together, please.
Yes, I'm going to read Resolution 2019-23 by title only, a resolution of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, approving application number 19-64, requesting a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a tourist home at 109 South Spring Boulevard, located on the east side of South Spring Boulevard in the residential multifamily RM zoning district, providing for findings, providing for conditions, and providing for an effective date. I'm going to read the quasi-judicial procedures. This is for those three items that the mayor has mentioned, item number 11, item number 13 on the agenda, and 14B. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Commissioners acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established by the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. This is the time for any board member to disclose any ex parte communications if they have any on this particular item. Okay. There being none, I'd like to go ahead and get sworn in. Anyone that's going to speak on this particular agenda item, if you could stand up, raise your right hand, and be sworn under oath. You swear that the testimony you're about to give is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. So, at this point, we'd have staff presentations.
Certainly. This is a request for a conditional use to allow a tourist home in an existing home in the residential multifamily zoning district. The property is located at 109 South Spring Boulevard. The property in question has met the criteria. It is a single-family detached home or dwelling, so therefore it meets the standard to allow for the temporary lodging facilities criteria and meets the standards of section 209.01 of the conditional use section, and I'll put the specifics onto the record. The residence existing includes sufficient area to accommodate access for parking. The city's technical review team reviewed the project at the regular meeting on July 30th, 2019, and determined that the project complies with the Land Development Code. Again, the property is located in the residential multifamily zoning district. There is an approximately a 500 feet from all sides to include in the residential zoning single-family conservation type zoning R60 district, and the area is a mix of multifamily apartments, triplex, duplexes, fourplexes, single-family dwelling. The tourist home use is allowable in very few zoning districts outside of the city's special area plan and the Sponge Docks area. The only allowance is for the residential multifamily district and the residential office district zoning. As a conditional use. Since a tourist home is the only allowable use as a single-family dwelling unit, is implied that the mix of housing types and the higher densities activity level in the residential multifamily district provide for an appropriate context for this use or type of use, and the use is determined to be compatible with and appropriate with property that is compatible with existing and planned uses in the general area. The conditional use is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, again, because it remains to the appearance single-family residential unit. The property is a contributing but altered resource on the city's city's historical district. The tourist home is merely a change of use and occupation. The actual appearance of the home will remain the same. The purpose of the tourist home, located within the general area of mixed single-family and multifamily housing, the property will continue to be subject to all applicable city codes and ordinances governing not only land use but noise, nuisance, property maintenance, and other similar codes. These standards will help that the proposed use will fit with the character of the neighborhood and will allow no adverse impact on additional property values. The single-family residence is existing and already served by city services, and the development will not require extension of any new public facilities. The proposed conditional use is located again within the area of a higher density and closer proximity to downtown and will not adversely impact the growth patterns or the ability of the city to provide for public services. Staff is recommending approval of Resolution 2019-23 with the following conditions. The property shall remain as a single-family residence rented as a single-family living unit. The building shall be maintained with the following: 1 smoke detector per each sleeping area, 1 smoke detector in the common hall between the sleeping areas. Smoke detector shall be of a 10-year lithium battery style, and a fire extinguisher shall be provided and shall have annual inspections. The applicant shall obtain and maintain a City of Tarpon Springs business tax license for the use, and if the business tax license lapses for a period of more than 6 months, a new review of conditional use will be required. The Planning Zoning Review Board heard this application on its August 19th, 2019 meeting. There were no public comments on the application. The board voted unanimously to recommend approval of the ordinance with the conditions listed above. And there should be, it should read under the planning and zoning, it should be 2019-23, not 18. And I can answer any questions that you might have.
Commission have any questions? Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Heather, is this conditional use application available for any other property that has RM15 zoning within the city? Permitted that it's not within 1,200 feet of another vacation home?
Agreed, as long as it is a single-family residential unit. We do have some folks that have units that have more than one tenant in them, so those don't fall under that section of code because they are not defined as single-family units. It has to be a single-family building, but yes, anything in RM zoning that's single-family can apply for under this conditional use for a tourist home exemption.
So if you have a piece of property that has 2 single-family homes and it has the RM15 zoning, right? So it has multiple units, then it would be it has the opportunity, or no?
As long as they're detached.
Yeah,
The
right.
key is the detached.
Gotcha.
So multiple units on the same property is okay,
Mhm.
even if they're single family, as long as they're detached.
Understood.
Your definition is very specific.
Thank you.
Any other questions? There being none, thank you, Heather. So next is the applicant's presentation. Is the applicant here tonight? There being no applicant present, are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, since the applicant is not going to be here to give a closing statement, Heather, is there any further comment that you wanted to give, a closing statement or summary?
No, I'm just available for any questions if you have any.
Heather, since the applicant is not present, does he understand the conditions that you recommended?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
Okay, now it's for the board's consideration.
Sure.
Any other comments? Any commission comments? Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes. Next is item number 12, the ordinance 2019-18. This is the application 1981 LDC amendment to plan development. This is the first reading. City Attorney, if you please read the ordinance.
This is ordinance 2019-18, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, amending Article 5 of Appendix A, the Comprehensive Zoning and Land Development Code, Section 78.01D1A, by removing the table and adding a reference to the City of Tarpon Springs Comprehensive Plan, and Section 83.00A, by expanding the ability to waive design requirements to include the Land Development Code, providing for severability and providing for an effective date. That was reading of ordinance 2019-18 by title only.
We're going to go staff report. Heather, if you please explain the benefits of this change as well.
Sure. This is a land development code amendment specifically to the plan development section of your code. Your plan development section of your code was very specific, the types of land uses that it allowed for you to have plan developments in. The list that it had for residential density does not include all of the land use categories that you have. It's a really an antiquated list of your older land use categories in your comprehensive plan. So we have chosen to strike that and just say that shall, as provided for each future land use category as listed in the future land use element of the comprehensive plan. So it says the maximum allowable residential densities and impervious surface ratios and forward area ratios of non-residential uses shall be provided in non-residential shall be provided for in the future land use categories of your listed in your future land use element of your comprehensive plan. So it just essentially takes out the antiquated list and says your densities and intensities are set by your comprehensive plan, which is consistent with the countywide rules. It's been attested to such. And as a result, that's the section of the code of your comprehensive plan that we're going to look to for the densities that are allowed under those particular future land use categories. It doesn't need to be restated in your land development code. The other change that we have, again, on top of 3 is just the end of that table, is under section 83, under the waiver section. We've chosen to strike plan development districts with the exception of the district dimensional criteria and basically say land development code. And what that means is then in the connection with approval of a plan, of a preliminary or a final development plan, the Board of Commissioners may waive or modify any design criteria of the land development code. However, in the event a residential project or land development is rezoned to plan development project, the residential land development that was previously subject to a development order issued prior to pursuant to section chapter 380.06 of the development of regional impact. It's basically talking about your regional impacts, which you don't have any longer. The Board of Commissioners may grant such waivers for modifications, including district dimensional criteria, as necessary to accommodate or recognize existing physical dimensional improvements for projects in the land development, in your land, existing projects, land or development. Essentially what this is stating is by removing the plan development districts with the exception of the dimensional criteria, we're opening up that this board, when a plan development comes forward, would be able to make waivers, modify or decide not to modify at the request of a developer if they're putting in something really interesting or a new development for a plan development. The idea behind plan developments is they are meant to be flexible so that a developer can propose interesting and new ideas so you get a better project. But at the same time, they provide controls for you to negotiate with them, their district standards down to height limitations, down to setback criteria, down to that type of criteria. So you can end up with different housing types and you can end up with a more varied appearance to your fabric, your community fabric. So we're recommending that this board be the control and be able to control all of the land development code, not just the regulations within this particular section of the code, but all the sections of the code. So if you get a plan development that comes in and needs modifications to a roadway, narrowing of roadways because they're going to provide additional green space, or they want to provide additional buffering because they want to save certain trees in certain areas, you would be able to accommodate them and work with them on waivers to address that as part of your development process. And remember, the plan developments come here first as a preliminary plan with the zoning change, and then they later come again with a final development plan before they're actually platted, or in the case of a commercial development, they do improvement plans. So I can answer any questions you have.
Any commissioner comments? Question? Are there any public comments on this item? No public comment? Need a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
And roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you.
And if I could just make note that there will be a second hearing on this on September 10th, 2019.
Next is item number 13, the ordinance 2019-19, the application 19-80, plat vacation. This is the first reading. This is also quasi-judicial. City Attorney, if you please read the title.
Yes, this is ordinance 2019-19, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, vacating and abandoning a portion of 2 adjacent 5-foot wide utility easements along the east side of Lot 3 and the west side of Lot 4 of Innis Point Plat Book 141, page 13, providing for conditions, providing for findings, providing for proposed and future easements, providing for recordation in the public records of Pinellas County, and providing for an effective date. This being a quasi-judicial hearing, I just want to make sure that there are no ex parte communications or conflict of interest that the board wants to address? No? Okay, and then if I could have anyone that's going to speak on this issue stand up, raise your right hand, and be sworn under oath. You swear that the testimony you're about to give is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Heather, it's your turn.
Okay. This is a request. We don't get these very often, but they do happen from time to time. The property owner actually purchased 2 lots, and they want to develop across the lot. What happened was when this was actually developed to the subdivision, we didn't put the developer didn't request. Your code doesn't require it. Some codes actually require it, but the developer didn't request, and your code doesn't require language that at the time, if somebody decided to build between 2 lots, that the actual perimeter utility easements would move out to the outside perimeter. So there are 2 existing utility easements that run in the middle of this property. The developer or the owner now wants to come in and actually build their house. They can't do it with those 2 easements there because those easements don't just automatically go away. So this is the formal process to actually extinguish the public's right to those utility easements. There are no utilities in there. I know that there's no utilities in there because this is a subdivision that we actually just started construction on not too long ago. Most of the utilities are down actually on the street frontage. There's nothing actually in the utility easements. We actually had the applicant go a step further and actually request from all of the other franchise companies, cable, telephone, all that type of thing, that there wasn't something installed that we didn't know about, because that does happen from time to time. Those all came back with letters of no objection for the vacate to go through. So essentially what the applicant's requesting is for the vacation of these 2 easements that run the length of the property and the center of the property to be released so that they can actually construct their home over the 2 lots. And the staff has no concerns with this. It doesn't really even meet the section of code that we have to kind of put them under, because your plat vacation is kind of mixed in with your right-of-way vacation section. That's one of those things that we will separate to make it easier on applicants when we go through the land development code rewrite, so that they don't have to do some of these extra steps that we actually had to ask the applicant to do in this case. But they have proven to us beyond any kind of substantial evidence that there's nothing there and there's no really concerns for this to move forward. So staff is recommending approval of this application, and I can answer any questions that you might have.
Questions? There being no questions, then, does the applicant wish to make a presentation?
Good evening again. Cindy Terrapini, 128 East Tarpon Avenue. I represent the property owners, Tony and Roxanne Marteri. And as Heather explained, they own the 2 lots together. They plan to build a house and the improvements over them. But it's really important for you to know that there are still utility easements along the outside edges of this entire property, the sides, the front, and the rear. But all the utilities that are serving the houses that exist there today are in Innis Drive, which is a private road and a ingress-egress easement. So we don't anticipate any problem being able to serve the property. It meets all your standards, as Ms. Erwaller stated. No objections from any neighbors. No one's here, obviously. And staff is recommending approval, so we would respectfully request your approval. Thank you so much.
Any questions?
No question.
Thank you. Now is the opportunity for the public to speak. Anyone in the public want to speak on this agenda item? Okay, there being no members of the public, does the city wish to summarize? Oh, there you go, Heather. Or make a closing statement?
I can answer any questions, but we don't have anything further to add.
Thank you. Ms. Terrapini, do you have any further statements or closing or summary?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's now for the board's consideration.
Are there any commission comments, questions?
No.
Need a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
And roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terrapini?
Yes.
Mayor Alahouzes?
Yes, thank you.
And I just want to make note that there will be a second reading of this ordinance on September the 10th, 2019, and it was published in the Tampa Bay Times by title only on August 30th, 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item number 14, which is the application 18 177 Caliber Collisions, US 19, and Riverwatch Boulevard. This is the second reading. This is the ordinance 2019-10, amending future land use map. We also have the item number 14, which is the ordinance 2019-11, amending zoning map. Those two items are related, and they will be discussed together, but we're going to vote separately. 14B is quasi-judicial, so Mr. Attorney, if you please read the title.
Okay, this is ordinance 2019-10, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, amending the future land use map for approximately 2.28 acres of property located along the east side of US Highway 19 North, approximately 427 feet north of Riverwatch Boulevard. This is APP-18-177 from ROR Residential Office Retail to IG Industrial General, providing for findings and providing an effective date. That was a reading of ordinance 2019-10 by title, and it's the second final reading. And if I could just swear anybody in, anybody that's going to speak on this agenda item besides staff, you can stand up, raise your right hand. You sworn under oath. You swear the testimony you're about to give is going to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. And Heather, your presentation.
Sure. This has been an extended period of time. Whenever the amendments have to go to forward panels, there's some time between. So I'm going to give a brief, I don't normally do this segment, I'm going to just give you a brief idea of what's going on with this application. Essentially what this is amendment to an existing plan development that was approved years and years ago, and really only Northern Tool was ever built on it. Based on your land development code, in order to build a collision center up on that property, they actually had to come back and amend not only the future land use category to industrial, but also a zoning category to industrial. So they're going from CPD to IPD. So essentially, that is what the crux of these two applications are. There was some opposition from the adjacent neighborhood, which is the Riverwatch neighborhood, at your previous hearing. This has since gone on to the county. The county has reviewed it and recommended the changes, and they've acted upon those changes. And at this time, we're here at second reading. I can answer any specific questions that you might have, but that's just the abbreviated facts of the case.
Any questions?
I've got a quick question. Heather, in one of our workshops, we mentioned something along the lines of looking at the city code that would update new developments and new commercial properties to put in the decorative stop signs and I suppose street signs of some sort, if it's handicap or whatever it may be. Obviously, we haven't gotten that far yet. Is that something that we could put in the criteria, or if the applicant would be open to that?
Your applicant will probably be open to that, and they're actually going to come with the next step in this process. They have to go through the second step of this, which is the final development plan. I will mention that to them. They're in the TRC process right now, that we would like that implemented in the final design plan, which functions as the site plan. Again, it's you seeing much of the same thing here, but that plan is going to be coming forward to you. So I will mention that to them, Jacob, and ask them if they're amenable to that.
Okay.
And if they are, we'll add that as part of the design mechanism, and then add it to the staff report that if they complied or not. Otherwise, we'll put a condition on the approval.
Okay. Can you give one more recommendation? I believe they're planning on using a viburnum odoratisum. I believe that's correct. I would just recommend that you use viburnum suspensum. It's the same type of hedge, but it just grows better for a hedge that fronts along US 19. That's going to be a much better situation for them.
You got it. We will do that too and ask them for that.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Is the applicant here tonight? Sir, you've been sworn in. If you could state your name and your address, please, and then make your presentation.
Hi, I'm Scott Standard with Commercial Site Solutions, 21764 State Road 54, Lutz, Florida. I'm the owner of Commercial Site Solutions. We're the engineers for Caliber Collision. Being that this is the second reading, I won't bore you with the whole presentation. You've seen all of that before, but I really just wanted to be here to answer any questions that may be specific to this that your staff hasn't already covered, or anything that you need to ask of me. I will address the comment about the signs and the viburnums, no problem. Just let us know what you need and we'll get it taken care of. So with that, I'll take any questions anyone may have.
Any questions? There being none? All right, thank you. Is there any member of the public that wish to address this issue? Seeing none, does the city want to make any closing or summary?
Just available for questions.
Does the applicant wish to make any closing or summary?
No further comment?
For the board's consideration, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any public comments? I mean, are there any commission comments on this item? Item number 14A and 14B? No. I need a motion for 14A, which is the ordinance 2019-10, amend the future land use map.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you.
And I just want to make sure that the public knows that this was published in the Tampa Bay Times by title only and with a map on May 3rd, 2019, and on August 16th, 2019.
Thank you. We now need a motion for the item number 14B, which is the ordinance 2019-11, amend the zoning map.
Yeah, let me just go ahead and read that by title only. Ordinance 2019-11, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, for approximately 2.28 acres of property located along the east side of US Highway 19 North, approximately 427 feet north of Riverwatch Boulevard, APP-18-177, from zoning designation CPD Commercial Plan Development District to zoning designation IPD Industrial Plan Development District, providing for findings and providing for an effective date. That was the second and final reading of ordinance 2019-11 by title only.
Okay.
Thank you.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you.
I just make note that this was also published by the Tampa Bay Times by title only with a map on May 3rd, 2019, and on August 16th, 2019.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is item number 15 is the appointments for our new sustainability committee. I'd like to remind everyone that we received 2 more applications. One is from Carol Miquette and also Karen Gallagher. Both are Citizens Academy graduates. Carol was graduated in 2019 and Karen was 2016. So we're going to do one line at a time. We need to appoint 2 3-year term positions. These terms will expire September 30th, 2020 as the regular members.
22.
22. September 30th, 2022.
Can I make my suggestion?
Sure.
Okay, I would appoint Dory Larson and Denise Menino.
Dory
Denise.
Larson and, I'm sorry, who's the other one?
Denise Menino, she's, she helped in starting the community garden as well as her husband and
Okay.
had a lot of experience with sustainability.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yeah, I'd like to propose Dory Larson and Paul Robinson. Paul Robinson is a doctor, and I met with him many times on different city environmental issues and sustainability issues.
Vice Mayor? You're okay.
This is for the first
For
2
the
positions
first-
for the 3-year term?
Mhm, yeah.
Okay. I'll do Denise Menino and Dory Larson.
Commissioner Carr?
I'll do Paul Robertson and Dory Larson.
Also like to do Dr. Paul Robinson and Dory Larson. Dory Larson, so. Well, we can actually, you keep track of all that?
Yes, for the 3 years, it's Dory Larson and Dr. Robinson.
Okay, so that's 3 years.
We would need a motion.
Can
to-
actually do a motion for that. Yeah, have a motion to that effect.
Move to appoint Dory Larson and Paul Robinson as regular members to fill the 3-year term positions.
Second.
In roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. The next appointment is, this term will expire September 30th, 2020, to fill 1-year term position.
2 years.
Oh, wait a
2
minute.
years.
2021.
2-year term.
2-year term.
2-year term. I jumped the one line down. So we're gonna need 2 appointments, 2-year term positions, and that expires September 30th, 2021. Commissioner Donovan.
For the 2-year term positions, I'd like to put forward Tina Bukavalis and Siobhan Naheen.
Commissioner Sieber.
Denise Menino and Robin Sanger.
Vice Mayor Terrapin.
I'll do Denise Menino and Taylor George Mandalou.
Commissioner Carr.
Do Taylor George and Denise.
Also good. I like to have Denise Menino and Taylor George Mandel. We need a motion for that.
Motion approved.
Second.
Just for clarity's sake, then
for-
it's,
Go ahead.
it's
Taylor and
Denise
Denise.
Menino and Taylor George
Mandalou.
Mandalou.
Correct.
Yeah, this is for the 2-year term and expires on September 30th, 2021.
Need a motion.
Need a motion?
We
We didn't select somebody?
Yeah, we had a motion.
have
I
a
think we
motion
did
on
the
the
motion.
floor and
Oh,
a
okay.
second.
Motion, I
Seconded
win a
it.
second.
All right.
A roll call.
Commissioner Donovan,
Yes.
Commissioner Carr,
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany,
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas.
Yes. Commissioner Carr, we're going to do the next one, which is this term expires September 30th, 2020. One person to fill 1-year term.
I'll do Robin Sanger.
Vice Mayor.
Karen Gallagher.
Commissioner Sieber.
Aaron Gallagher.
Commissioner Donovan.
Robin Sanger.
And I also do Karen Callender. I need a motion
Motion to appoint.
approve.
and roll call.
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Donovan,
Yes.
Commissioner Carr,
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany,
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas.
Yes, thank you. Now we need one alternate for 2-year term. And that term expires September 30th, 2021.
Aren't we down to the,
Commissioner Donovan, start with you again.
I'll go Robin Sanger for the alternate number 1.
Is that what it was?
no.
No, okay.
I think so far, just to recap real quick, we have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dory, Paul, Taylor, Denise, and Karen are the regular board, and now we're picking alternate number 1, and
Okay.
I proposed Robin Sanger.
All right. Okay. Commissioner Sieber,
Robin Sanger.
Vice Mayor, your opinion.
Judy Nelson.
Commissioner Carr,
Robin Sanger.
also like to select Robert Singer as well. I need a motion for that
Motion to approve.
Second.
and roll call.
Commissioner Carr, I'm sorry, Commissioner Donovan,
Yes.
Commissioner Carr,
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany,
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas.
Yes. And the last appointment is for alternate number 2. This term expires September 30th, 2020, 1-year term. Commissioner Sieber.
Sherban Nahin.
Sorry?
Sherban Nahin.
Okay. Commissioner Donovan.
I'll go Siobhan as well.
Vice Mayor.
Judy Nelson.
Commissioner Carr.
Judy Nelson.
I also like Judy Nelson as well. I need a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. Well, that completes the agenda tonight, but we have a request from Vice Mayor Terapany. Has advised us that he'll be on vacation and he will miss the September 10th meeting. So we need a motion to excuse Vice Mayor to be absent.
Thank you, Mayor. Make a motion to excuse Vice Mayor for September 10th.
Second.
And roll call.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Terapany?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. And we're now going to the staff comments. Chief,
No comments, Mayor. Thank you.
City Attorney,
No comments tonight. Thank you.
City Manager.
One thing I wanted to mention, and I still need to check with Attorney Trask's office and see if Mr. Eschenfelder can be there, but I'm looking at doing the final second workshop so we can finalize and start getting ready for ordinance, the sign code on Tuesday, October 1st. So we don't necessarily have it. I just wanted to call that attention. If anyone knows right now, it's absolutely out. We can say later. Again, I have to check with the attorney. But we'll be ready to get going with that and go to ordinance. That's a major planning element that we've been waiting for and we need to complete. So that's the tentative date. I'll check with the attorney and check with all of y'all again, but kind of put that on the calendar.
Okay, so can I jump in?
Yeah.
Rob is no longer with the firm. His wife took a position in Manatee County, and so Rob gave us his notice a month or so ago. So he's already moved to South Florida. So I am the attorney that will be handling that issue, the sign code. And obviously I've been following along with it all the way. And I have a conflict on October the 1st. And so I got my calendar open. Maybe we can pick another date tonight. I just didn't know it was coming up. Sorry.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be tonight. You can
No, I
actually-
didn't. I was just trying to get ahead, so I'll get some other dates and
Okay.
get back with you and the board. I'll send to you for a couple other dates and
Thank you.
and get back to you on that.
Okay.
The other thing, again, we're starting to crank out some projects and complete them. If you're watching the Facebook page, I think last week we had one almost every day. Today, I think we put out the sponge docks, and although we noted the Greek and American flags, we've also put some lights on Athens Street and some other temporary things. So we're doing a lot of completion of plans we've talked about during the year, and we'll keep getting those up and keep working, right up to the end of September to get as many out before the end of this budget year that we can. So we're trying to get them with the manpower that we have. The deck, I think you'll be impressed with the new deck at Sunset Beach. That's going to be almost complete. We'll picture that out and set. Sisseler Field's almost complete. You approved the side money for that. The thing that won't be, we won't have the parking lot and we got trees ordered and we'll have things ordered for parking lot. Won't be complete, but it'll be able to park in for the Little League. But we'll be finishing up on that. But the fields will be done in time for their opening of this season and stuff. So we have a lot of things that's going to be coming out within this last month that we're in the 3/4, almost completion stage. So we're going to try to get as many of those ones we talked about done, and then, of course, pick up October 1 and continue with the rest of them.
Thank you. Mr. LaCourse, we have a tropical storm on the Caribbean. We're ready for it, right?
Yes, we're ready. We're watching it already, and we're ready to mobilize and activate.
Ms. Jacobs?
I have no comments.
No. Commissioner Carr?
Thanks, Mayor. First, I want to say congratulations to the inaugural sustainability board or committee that was appointed tonight. This has been something that's been worked on for quite some time. I do want to thank Ms. Larson for her efforts and the rest of the individuals in town who made efforts to make this possible, as well as there's going to be a volunteer board, obviously, that's going to be making recommendations to the Board of Commission. So I know there's going to be some exciting discussions over the next few years pertaining to sustainability. Secondly, I'm going to be meeting with Chairperson Karen Steele, who's a Pinellas County Commissioner, tomorrow afternoon. If there's anything from the board's perspective that you would like me to bring up, or the city manager would like me to bring up, please send me a memorandum or send it to the city manager tomorrow morning. I'm happy to bring it up at my meeting tomorrow afternoon with Karen. And then thirdly, I wanted to pass out some renditions and ask for a potential for a consensus tonight. I think there's enough for the police chief too, so let's not leave him out, okay? I've been working with some individuals about the entranceway of trying to get some renditions together. The first top copy is going to be the one that's from Christopher Still, and then there's a second and third copies that are just some ideas that have been put together by a local artist. Chris, when I talked to him, he said he didn't really have the time to devote to this project right now, but gave us a rendition and an idea of a thought of what it could look like. So you're seeing maybe like a base that's made out of brick or marble with the front sign that says Historic Tarpon Springs. That's probably going to be about 7 or 8 feet tall. Then you've got a large sponger that would stand on that. And that was to use an example of the sponger that was in front of Pappas's. When I met with the owners of that property, I could definitely tell that that was not a bronze statue, and it was a piece of fiberglass and some other metal that's deteriorating, so it's not really a viable option to discuss that with them. But it shouldn't put it out of the picture if the city were to, if there was a consensus that this is what should be on the entrance. Then he had a couple palm trees in the back and some grass in the front. The next two is from another local artist that put together just some ideas on paper, a lot better than I could. The first couple are the next two are just off to the side. These could also be done over Dodecanese as well. And I believe with my meeting with the individuals that own the old Pappas building, that they were receptive to working with the city if needed to provide some right-of-way space to use an over-the-road sign, and they're pretty excited about it. So the first one that you see here, you've got the sponger in the middle, and I think that's really the best approach, is do something over the road to get the biggest bang and the most attention for people that drive down the road. Welcome to Historic Sponge Docks. You have a tarpon. These are actually lighthouses on the right and left. And then you've got the sponger that's in the middle, but that would be moved over to one of the poles. And then the last picture you have is an example of a channel marker. Again, that's something that you see out in the river. He's got some birds with some buoys and also some ropes. So with that, I wanted to see if there's a consensus to at least direct the city manager. I spoke to the artist a little bit further, and he said he would charge $333 per professional rendition, so he could bring something back to the board to say this is something that we could run with for design purposes and get quotes on. And I figured 3 renditions would probably be sufficient. I don't know how you feel, but it'd be about $1,000 that the board could put forth, because at this point, my understanding in past meetings, it seems like that the board is ready to move forward with the Sponge Dock sign, but we just don't have the renditions and the ideas that we're looking for. So I don't know if we need to talk to the city manager about giving him our ideas, and then he could talk to the artist about putting some renditions together, or whatever it may be, but I want to get this going and continue to move down the road, whatever it is. So I think it would be a good idea to at least direct the city manager if there's some funds left in this fiscal year 2019 to get something on paper so we can continue the process of figuring out what's going to go at the beginning of the Sponge Docks.
Can I ask a question?
Vice Mayor.
So you're talking about the $333 for all or one rendition?
It would be one.
Okay, so if we decide that we like one, then we'd be spending $300 on that one rendition.
So I would recommend that if we get a handful of them to look at, 3 or 4 would be best, I think, to have a better idea of what it really could look like. And then we can make a decision after that based on the options.
So we're not making a decision tonight?
No.
Okay.
No. The ask is to give a consensus to the city manager so he could spend the money to pay the artist or the person to do the rendition for us. The designer, I guess, is the best word of saying it.
Mayor?
Yes, Vice Mayor, go ahead.
I want to thank Commissioner Carr for continuing to try and move this along. I like some of the renditions, but as it exists right now, I don't think that based on the renditions that are here, I don't know that I would be able to give consensus as it relates to giving the city manager direction on one way or another to move forward. But I do think that the best way to move this process forward would be to, given that there is going to be some public art involvement as it relates to like that committee and just public art in general with this sign feature, I think maybe we should look at our language that's in the public art ordinance as it relates to like how we can select an artist. We kind of went over this when we talked about public art in the workshop, I think, but within some of that ordinance, and I don't quote me directly, but I mean, you know, there's several different ways in which you can pick an artist, and some of them are actually unique. So maybe since we're going to incorporate public art and maybe even that public art committee, that would be the starting point as it relates to selecting the artist. That's just some food for thought. I mean, I want to move forward sooner than later too, but just based on these renderings, I don't know that I can say, yeah, I like this one enough to, you know, give the city manager authorization to proceed. But I'd like to get it going sooner than later, but that's some food for thought.
So these are just like designs. They're not necessarily.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
Yeah, he's not.
He's more of a designer
Right.
and giving us ideas, right? So
if we are going to use him as a designer, then there's longitude in the public art ordinance to do that. You can literally select one person, which I think is unique from a procurement standpoint. So if that's the case, then, you know, let's select somebody, you know.
Mayor? I agree, because the Public Art Committee has even been thinking about this as well. You know, they've talked about doing or helping to direct us towards an entry sign for the sponge docks. And I know from talking to Chris that he really doesn't have the time, and there might be a conflict. So I agree that we should also talk to our Public Art Committee and see if they can find some artists that would do renditions.
We could even structure it to a degree as a competition, you know, since we're looking for ideas, right? Structure it in such a way to where, you know, if you have ideas, we make a competition, or you do think with reading some of their guidelines, you can have you can request for designs, concepts, or whatever the case may be, and have a structure in a competition where there is a winner. And then we could take, you know, maybe we take 5 of those 20 designs. I don't know, maybe we reach out to the high school and see if they want to try and, you know, have a competition. Nothing says that you have to use whatever's designed, but I mean, it's a creative way to try and get more conceptual renderings for us to build our thoughts on.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yeah, I'd like to get more renderings to look at. I really like the competition idea. I think that'd be a good way to get, you know, even dozens, at least of art sketches similar to this that we could look at. And then again, through the art committee, we could narrow it down from there, or we can, I just want to make sure we get enough public input on this because, you know, it's such an important area to our city. My question is, where were we, and again, I guess this is for Mr. City Manager, but where were we in this process before just now? Like before we got these designs in or not even designs, but before we got these sketches in our hands tonight, was that where we were at going forward? We were
waiting for some type of look for the sign, yes.
Okay. So was that being pursued through the art committee, or was that on us just to bring up?
I think a few mentioned about Chris. I mean, I think it was mentioned that some people were going to bring forward just as a starting point. Again, it's good to look at something to be a starting point. So I think that's what something like this was what we were waiting for, and there were some people working on it to show you as a board and see where you wanted to go from there and stuff. So
okay, so that's where we were at in the process. We were just waiting on something. Okay, all right. Then thank you, Commissioner Carr, for jumpstarting this and bringing this forward.
Commissioner Carr, I personally like to thank you for taking the time to do all these extra work. But I also believe that the Public Art Committee should be involved. And I like the idea to have a competition, so we get ideas. Perhaps we can expand it to St. Petersburg College. And we got some professors there. They're excellent. They're willing to work with us and help us out. And we have so many talented people in the city that can actually provide their expertise, their ideas, and select the one that we think is the best. But I want to get thank you.
I have one more question.
You're welcome.
Has it been determined where we're going to put this?
No, it comes down
haven't gotten
to
approval to put it on the public or
there's right away too. I mean, there's
property.
Again, it's going to depend what you build, what's goes over the road, and what's the requirement for the wind load and everything on the base and the size of the base.
And
If
it
the
has
size
to be
of
determined where
the
we're
size
gonna
of the
put it.
base hopefully will fit in our right of way, and we don't have to deal with any of the other issues.
Okay.
If there's something about the weight or something of what we do that we have to ask for a piece of property, but ask for a piece of property, especially if we want to move it closer to the entrance, then we have to deal. But we won't know that until we have able to design it and find out what the requirements of the base. The base makes the whole difference of if we have enough right of way or we have to ask for a few feet of land from somebody.
Right.
I had breakfast with Michael not long ago, and I do that periodically with him. I brought that up to him, and he's willing to work with us when we're ready. We got to do it, just call him. He's willing to work with us. And also, I talked to him about the section that the commission I was talking about. It's not in good shape, fiberglass. And the reason why the beginning was placed in the back was kind of protected because it's a fiberglass. That's not really a heavy structure. So I don't think that would be a good idea, even if they give it to us, but they're not.
Right.
To put it in a location would be exposed to the weather.
So for clarity, I'm completely for with creating competition. I've brought that up multiple times. The public art.
Good idea.
I'm not against it at all. I'm just trying to give some type of idea to get something sparked, right, to move forward with it. So I'm happy to have the public art committee look at it. I would ask if we could direct the staff to have them put on their agenda this coming meeting to at least start the discussion, because again, like it's been reiterated multiple times, we want to see this project moving forward, right? And I think we've talked about some ideas in the past as well, and we could share at least some of those. But then obviously a lot of the artists that are out there are very creative, and they can come up with some ideas that we didn't come up with. And I'm completely for that. I was just trying to spark something that at least get the ball continuing down the road. So I appreciate all the kind words as well. I'm happy to be involved with this. Like we all know, we all have our own little projects that we're trying to push forward, but I think this is the one that as a board we all want to see completed sooner than later.
If I can just build on that, Mayor. I think while utilizing the Public Art Committee, we need to give them direction. We don't need to just say, here, we want you to come up with something here. So I mentioned the Public Art Ordinance, and maybe, Mr. City Manager, you can send out that excerpt and what I'm talking about. I think it relates to artist selection. So if you can send out that portion of the ordinance to the Board of Commissioners for us to review and refresh our memory on, some policies that we have in place as it exists today on how to select artists, then we'll have a better understanding of the direction that we need to give to the Public Art Committee or to whoever, for what we're looking for. So I think it should start there. I think if it starts there, then we'll have a better foundation for what we anticipate or what we want from that committee.
Good. Anything else, Commissioner?
That's it on my list.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I just want to thank staff for all their hard work and give out some accolades as it relates to different things that they've been bringing before us. I think during the summer it's always important to recognize our public works crews, out working in the heat of the day, and we're certainly demanding a lot from them as it relates to in-house projects and just moving projects forward as a whole. So I want to give accolades to all of staff, specifically Public Works. And then also just thank the board for granting my excused absence.
Yes, I agree with you as far as giving accolades to our staff. They do a great job, and I don't think they're recognized enough, and that's why I wanted to start some type of recognition process to recognize either people who've worked here for a very long time or people who've done something amazing like Ronnie has. Also, since we were recognizing people, the mayor and I went to Officer John Ulrich's retirement celebration today, and I just want to recognize him for his almost 30 years of service with the police department. He was he's been around for a long time, has done a lot of different duties, but he's a great guy, and I wish him well. And sustainability. I'm so excited that we finally have come together and voted a sustainability committee, and I'm looking forward to all your suggestions and what we can do to help and move forward. It's so important, and I appreciate you all. We have some great people on the committee. And arts and crafts on the Sponge Docks this weekend. I also want to thank you, Mark, for listening to some of our business owners and the improvements on the docks. I rode down the docks last night, and the lights on Athens Street make a huge difference. And so those business owners appreciate it, and the trees have been trimmed and some things that needed to be done. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm really happy with our sustainability committee. I mean, the fact that we're going to get that committee started up, and we got everything from a student of environmental science on there to a doctor to various environmental professionals. I mean, the passion on that board is going to do our community really, really well. I also want to say I'm really excited for the new Little League field. I want to thank staff for all the hard work that they're doing to put that together. Little League really deserves it. They have a great board, just like all other youth sports programs. Their board's strictly volunteers. I did also want to bring up, in regards to Little League Baseball, if you guys know any Little League Baseball coaches or parents, there's a USA Baseball Coaches Clinic going on at Sisler Field, September 4th, 2019, from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., and that's going to have former Major League players there, members of the Major League Players Association there. So that's going to be awesome. And again, that was all strictly volunteers that put that together and contacted USA Baseball.
What was that date, Commissioner?
That's September 4th, 2019, 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m.
Aren't you a coach?
And,
coach.
Yeah, that's what I
and
thought.
that's at the Little League fields. Yeah, Manny Sesmelis put that together.
But you're going to be
I
here.
was supposed to be at the head coach or the coach meeting tonight, but this took precedent.
The 4th, you're going to be here for our first public hearing on the budget, so
Yeah,
you're going to miss that
I missed
too.
that one too. Oh well,
You didn't ask for another excused absence?
they don't have the same procedures.
But yeah, so I'm excited about that. That's awesome. We're gonna get that for our Little League coaches. And then I also just wanted to bring you guys kind of in the loop of where I was at with the field trips to the Fred Howard Park Marine Rehab Center. Most of you guys probably know that's actually what started my first contact with Tarpon Springs city government, was me just reaching out about possible field trips to Fred Howard Park, as it is a county park. So it did take some intergovernmental work. But now it's no longer a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. I met with Commissioner Eggers. Commissioner Eggers gave me his full support on it. I then met with the Clearwater Marine Aquarium and the VP of their education center, and they're completely on board with it. So now, in late September, I'm meeting with all of our local principals, Clearwater Marine Aquarium, and Dave Eggers, and we'll answer all their questions about it. We'll take them and go see the facility. So I'm really excited about that, and hopefully, by the second semester of school, we'll be able to put on some field trips there.
Mayor, can I do one more item that you reminded me of? I want to thank City Clerk Michelle Manousis and Karen Lemons. They're coordinating a little committee for me for our homecoming. The homecoming here on the 13th of September. As you know, we got the signs out to support our football team. What this committee for me is doing is putting together to work with the merchants to really make our town look Sponger-like, whether it be balloons or whether it be but they're working for that. We're also going to put a city mini float together to be in to show our city's report, as we talked about football and all sports and stuff. to show the city's support. So they are working on the float that'll be in there. We're gonna work with the merchants and really dress up downtown, so when those kids go through the downtown, they're gonna see the old days of support and anything else we can do. So I wanna thank my internal committee, and I think, put all the data on there. I think, you'll like what you see from the city and our show for representing and supporting the Tarpon High football team to get them back on track. And believe me, their future will be bright when those poor freshmen and stuff they're playing against those big, when they get a couple of years in them, we'll be back formidable again. And with our support and the community support and everybody who's in the stands that night to come support, and we need to keep that up no matter what the score is, because we're not forfeiting. We're not a high school that doesn't have a team out there to play. It doesn't matter the wins or losses now. It's going to be the future. So the city's going to do everything they can because we have the word from this board. They want to do everything we can. So we'll be supportive, and we'll show that support on homecoming on the 13th.
Thank you. Mr. Licorice, if you please thank our employees on my behalf, actually from all of us, for working out in the hot sun, in this terrible, in the hot weather. When do we have our appreciation picnic for the employees? Is it coming up, or?
Yeah, when it gets cooler. We're looking probably late September, October, when it cools down a little bit.
Okay.
So.
Put me down, I'll be serving them again.
Okay.
So.
Get some whole pig.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, hot dogs.
Yeah.
Get a couple.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple.
Also like to, Commissioner Sieber already said, Saturday, August 31st, which is this week, Monday. Saturday and Monday, we have the Arts and Crafts Festival from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. down at the Place Dock.
No, from 10 a.m. to
10 a.m.
6
to 2 p.m. It's just 2 p.m. here.
to 6 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday, and to 5 p.m. on Monday.
Okay, so it's from 10 to 6.
Right. Sunday, it closes, Monday closes at 5.
Okay, I'm glad you correct that, because I had the wrong time.
Yeah, it's not a very long amount of time from 10 to 2.
Okay, Thursday, September 5th, we have the Sunset Concert from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Friday, September 6th, we have our popular event, the first Friday, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Tarpon Avenue. And September 7th, we have the Rotary Triathlon from 5:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. at Freyhauer Park. I know that our city attorney is going to be there.
Yeah, I'm doing registration, so, yeah.
So
I'll be there at 4:30.
setup is from 5:30, it starts at 7.
5:30.
The event starts at 7.
Actually, it's not earlier than that, isn't it?
The race actually will start at 7 a.m. The registration starts at like 5:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the streets will be closed
So
until,
probably finish about 9?
yeah, a little bit after 9 o'clock. Yeah.
Also like to congratulate Dr. Rod Davis from St. Petersburg College for their upcoming ribbon cutting for the Collegiate High School program. This is the new program for our area. I think this is the second one in St. Petersburg College. They have one down in St. Petersburg, and it's very successful. So we're going to have one up here. Well, that concludes the regular session meeting, and it's adjourned at 8:59 p.m. Before 9.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.